Emwanta. He is a senior special assistant to the Edo State Governor on Public Affairs. He is a lecturer and a constitutional lawyer, an outspoken supporter of the governor. He is willing to make an impression about Governor Obaseki's achievements at any given opportunity. He teaches at the University of Calabar. He will be speaking to us on the legal issues in the run-up to the campaigns. Adaze, you are welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Abiba, and good evening to our viewers at home.
And my name is Habiba Oyege Oyarekwa, your regular host on this program. Now, what is your assessment of the administration of Obaseki in the last 3.5 years?
It is not something that is just a personal opinion. It is a general opinion of Edo people, and by extension Nigerians, that Governor Godwin Obaseki has performed so well that the issue of his second term is a done deal. Because when you look at the governors we've had in the past, none has impacted the human capital index, the way the governor has transformed that particular part of the social milieu of Edo people. Because over the years, we've always talked about infrastructure. Nobody has really focused on the individual, the Edo man, the Edo woman, the youth, the women, the children. And that is what I think this governor has done differently from what previous administrations have been doing. Look at our Edo Best program. We've always had problems associated with criminality, and even this general notion of the way Agberos before now dominated the political space. Because this governor realized that if these Agberos were educated, they would not resort to touting. They would not resort to criminality. So he's not just looking at the problem, but he's looking at the root of the problem, the root cause of certain antisocial behaviors. And the only way we can cure this is education. And that is why the governor has made that the focus of his administration. And it cuts across from basic to tertiary. And even when you now look at the staff strength, of course, the number has increased and the quality too has increased. Yeah. For the very first time, we have a civil service institute. Edo State over the years has been known as a public service state, a civil servant state. But the governor has been able to give that sector a new lease of life. Look at those buildings that were abandoned during the time of Omodia. He has transformed those buildings. But he didn't just transform the buildings. He looked at the human elements, right? Yes. And that's why you now have a civil service training institute, first of its kind in Nigeria. No state can boast of that. So when you look at the Godwin Obaseki administration, it has various components. But I'm happy that he has been able to give it a human face. Whatever he does, he looks at the end beneficiaries, which are the people, not just the people, those that at the end of the day have given him a mandate, which is the Edo people. And you know, when you talk of those that live in Edo, it is not just only Edo indigenes that live. You have non-indigenes. And that's why the private sector has done so much in the area of capacity building. And that's why we have this, our Edo Best program. A whole lot of unemployed youths have been given reasons not to be on the streets idle. And when you look at the present National Bureau of Statistics, recent release on the unemployment situation within the South-South, you discover that we have the lowest unemployment rate. Sometime last year, or more than a year ago, we were somewhere around 24.1, but the unemployment rate in Edo has dropped down to 90%. Compare that with Delta, which is 40.3. You discover that this governor has done so much in the area of reducing the unemployment problem we've had.
I just read that you're a lecturer and a constitutional lawyer. You teach at the University of Calabar.
Yes, but currently on leave of absence.
Okay.
So I cannot be here and there at the same time.
Okay, but while you were teaching, what area of law did you focus on?
Constitutional law and international law, and I have published work in these areas.
Okay, so now let's talk legal matters.
Thank you.
What are the legal pitfalls before the candidate of the APC in the forthcoming governorship election in Edo State?
It's even difficult to agree that there's a candidate, because if you have primaries in the PDP, can you ask yourself the same question with a positive answer in respect of the APC? They didn't have primaries. The national chairman at the time, Victor Gaydom, came all out to say he didn't call for primaries. And unfortunately, what they were calling for was a NEC. And under their own constitution, Articles 18 and 19 is very clear.
But what about what happened before Gedom came on board?
You know, when you talk of what was there before, there was really nothing, because Oshomola was removed sometime in March. Unfortunately, there was an order to stay that removal, which was later vacated. Because when somebody has been removed from an office, it means he does not have the authority to act. Even if you delay the evil day, it does not change what exists in law. So the danger they faced at that time was the fact that they didn't put their house in order. The court brought back Gedom. Gedom was the acting chairman in March. He was later restored. And between the time they had what they call a primaries and when Gedom was restored, the neck of their party, which was supposed to meet to decide the modalities for the primaries, did not meet. It was after Oshomola was removed by the Court of Appeal and Gedom reinstated as the acting chairman that their neck now met. And unfortunately, they had just 2 days between the deadline and when their neck met. And nothing happened between these 2 days. The only letter that was sent was to the effect that they didn't have primaries, written by their acting chairman, Gedom. And funny enough, who appointed the committee that organized these so-called primaries? Unfortunately, it was someone that didn't have authority, Hilad Etta. So these are issues which are sub judice. I will not want to go into the merits or otherwise. The matter comes up on the 26th. And I can assure you that the court cannot hold otherwise. Because if the national leadership of the party,
26th of August,
as led by their chairman, said they didn't have primaries, and even warned INEC to discountenance anything coming from the unknown faction led by Hilad Etta. And unfortunately for these people, they failed to realize too that this same Gedom they tried to disparage was the one that called for that neck. And unfortunately, instead of the neck to have called for proper primaries, they now ratified what exists in law. The law does not say you ratify what does not exist. The law says organize primaries, and NEC of every party, the National Executive Committee of every party, has that sole duty. So they had an opportunity which was lost. And that is what the court will determine. And you know, there's no proper way to do the wrong thing. Compare that with the PDP. He was granted a waiver. We had a primaries that took place at the stadium. There were some persons that were initially aggrieved that, you know, they had issues, and these issues were resolved. There was somebody who went to court. You know, one of the aspirants went to court to go there, and he would do that matter from the court. And you saw how the other aspirants, the 2 other aspirants, rose up the hand of the governor. Everything was done in order, and that is why the PDP is not having any problem. And apart from that, they have other matters that border on qualification. There was even one that came up today over Isaiah Amu's law school qualification. But unfortunately, they have now devised a method, I mean the embattled APC governorship candidates, of writing petitions. There's a matter in court. Instead of responding to this matter, they write a petition and they make all kinds of allegations. But you know one good thing? You can write petition, but if it does not address the issue, the court will go ahead and give its decision.
Okay. So what do you make of the allegations of impersonation leveled against the running mate of the candidate of the APC?
When you say impersonation,
well, yes.
How do you mean, ma'am?
That there are
discrepancies on a certain
yes,
with respect
a
to
lot of
candidates.
names are propping up. Yes.
I know we have a history which is very recent. What happened in Bayelsa, you know, where the running mate to the APC candidates, David Lyon, had about 4 different names in 4 different documents, 3 of which were his qualifications. And unfortunately, it is not very different from the one that Gani Awudu of the APC, the running mate to Izeyamu, has. Yeah. It has about 4 different names, which appears in 4 different documents, 3 of which, or 2 of which are his qualifications. The others, of course, the form he filled, you know, before INEC, and his voter's card. So when you have such a discrepancy and you don't have any affidavit evidence to resolve this discrepancy, it is taken that either the 4 are forged or 3 are forged, because there's no element of originality. The law allows for clarity. I cannot say I am Adaze Andrew, and elsewhere I have Adagbonyi Andrew, and elsewhere I have Ada Andrew, and elsewhere I have Emma Andrew. So when you have things like this, there's this tendency to believe that maybe somebody wrote an exam for somebody, or somebody is trying to be funny. So I think that is what the court will decide. And funny enough, you don't just have one, you have 2 different matters. The PDP also went to court, apart from the matter which made this thing popular, the ADP matter. The PDP matter comes up on the 27th. And the PDP matter is not different from that the PDP in Bayelsa brought against David Lyon and his running mates, which cost APC their so-called victory in Bayelsa. So for me, the APC as a party, I have so much sympathy for them.
Why?
Because they will not be on the ballot. Because even if by mistake they find themselves on the ballot, it can still be corrected. Remember, it was just a day to the inauguration of David Lyon. It was rehearsing when that Supreme Court thunderbolt came. And you know, when you do what is wrong in law, you will surely pay for it. When you do what is wrong, you will surely pay for it.
So are you seeing similarities between the running mate of the APC and the scenario that played out in Bayelsa State?
Certainly. Because when you have 4 different names in 4 different documents, it's an obvious discrepancy. It goes against laid down rules as far as the Supreme Court decision in that David Lyon's case is concerned. Because, of course, they didn't present any affidavit. Because there's even this allegation that the running mate to Isaiah, what's his name, Ganiya, would use his younger brother's qualification because they bear similar names. So you have very clear discrepancies. And until these things are resolved by the court, the APC will just be on a wild goose chase. All the votes, if they even score half votes, it does not matter whether they lose the election. The Supreme Court or whichever court that matter will be finally resolved, will definitely give a ruling to make a pronouncement.
And there's been no affidavit to show that
there was no affidavit. There was no affidavit. All these things were published. There was nothing to resolve those name discrepancies. And that was carelessness. And unfortunately for them, they said that there were discrepancies in the governor's qualification, which was resolved by the University of Ibadan, which was resolved by the NYC. But it is the pit dead dog that their running mate is going to fall inside. Because Oshomole was very good at preaching that because he noticed that there were some discrepancies, which of course went to court in 2016. I know when you ask that question, Oshomole talking, does he have any school certificates? The answer is no. This is somebody, the only evidence he has is that he was a tailor somewhere in Kaduna. And when you now see him taking people to the cleaners, you ask, who is this man? Did he go to school at all? He was a primary school dropout. In the 60s. It was when he was governor, we realized that the place that had the documents of the school where he attended was completely razed down
now we're talking
when the matter was in
about
tribunal.
we're talking about the APC candidate of today, not of old, all right? We are speaking with Adaze Emwanta, the Senior Special Assistant to Edo State Governor on Public Affairs. And when we come back, we are going to be talking about the reforms in the judiciary by His Excellency. Please stay with us.
As a young boy growing in Benin, I had goals. I had visions that I needed to accomplish at some certain stages in my life. Schooling, starting life, starting a family, developing myself. Coming back to Benin, I said, okay, I needed to start a project, creating shelter for myself and for a family. When I started raising a family, I got a plot of land, trying to develop this land. I encountered a lot of challenges, which ate deep down into my pocket. What I should have used X, Y, Z of amount for, I started using ×2 of that amount. Why? Because of CDAs. They come to my site, distort workers, seize their materials at every stage during the process of that construction, from starting the foundation to the decking stage up to the roofing stage, even putting a bulb in my property. I had to pay for it. At that point, I for one personally gave up. Gave up totally. That I was thinking of migrating away from this country and relocating elsewhere, so that I can have peace and live in a sane society, because the development in Edo State became stagnant. Nothing was happening in Edo State. Edo State was not bubbling. Business were not thriving, because those who are willing to come and invest in Edo State had issues with these CDAs people. But God brought succor to us and brought Obaseki, and He restored our hope. Now people are coming back. Investments are going on right, left, and center. Those who did not have a plot started buying. New areas are being opened. Roads are being tarred, and more people are coming to develop their states. Parents are encouraging their children outside the Edo State, come and develop, things things have changed, oh, no more interference from CDAs, oh, and they are all happy, and we thank the governor for that, because that was a big win, for not just for me, but my generation and the generation years upon. And now Benin is peaceful because those people are no longer there. My name is Joseph Obaseki. That young man that almost gave up, that almost migrated from his own state where he was born, where he was bred, to go and look for greener pasture elsewhere. I'm here with so much projects under my purview. I'm working every day peacefully without interference from CDA. Hope has been restored. Sanity has been restored because we have a working governor, Governor Obaseki.
You're welcome back. Now, Adaze, what is your opinion about the key reforms in the judiciary by Governor Obaseki?
Yeah, thank you. I'm a bit emotional because it's one question that touches on me as an individual because I'm a lawyer. I'm not just a lawyer, I'm a university law teacher.
Okay.
Over the years, we've always had problems associated with the key infrastructure in our sector, that's the justice sector, and the call for reforms is twofold. I mean, the laws that make up what we call our judicial system and the physical infrastructure that makes justice dispensation possible. Okay. Recently, I had the opportunity of leading some journalists that came to town on a tour of the facilities that the governor has put in place. Yeah. Not just the courtrooms, but where the judges live. Before now, we never had a proper place that you can refer to as the judges' quarters. You know, this government, of course, you have government house, Adaze Avenue in Benin. Yeah. You have where the lawmakers live, the legislative quarters along Hiyama. But we just had one residence for the chief judge of the state by virtue of being the head of one of the organs of government. But unfortunately, the judges who naturally are part of that arm of government, leaders in that part of that arm of government, never had their official residences. And the idea is this: if they have a place where they live, they can be sure of security. They can be sure of some form of public welfare because of the role the role they play in society of being the last hope, the proverbial last hope of the common man. Okay. So when I went to the new judges' quarters that was built by this government, by the government of Governor Obaseki, I was so impressed. I give you some of the architectural features. These are duplexes, 5-room duplexes with inbuilt study. Even up to the kitchen, there's air conditioning there. Their domestic staff have their living area. And it was as if I was in the Aso Villa. I was very impressed. They even have a place to socialize. Yeah. So when you have all these facilities in place, don't you think that the judiciary will be impartial? And this is the very first government that most of the decisions that have been handed down is been against the government. You remember that waste disposal case that the former chief judge decided against the state government. Yeah. Why? Because the governor has given the judiciary that free hand to operate as an independent arm of government. And the only way you can assure security of tenure is when you make these people work in very decent environment. And beyond the facilities, the governor has also spent time to explain some of the reforms, like he's training stenographers, over 1,000 stenographers. And you know the duty of stenographers. Our judges don't need to write again in longhand. Everything is automated. So that if you now want record of proceedings, it's easy to assess this thing. So no judge can now adjust his record because the stenographer is taking note of everything. So it allows for some form of check and balances in the system. So in all, you discover that this is the first governor that has given a human face to justice dispensation from the time of Osadebe in the Midwest.
All right, so what is your impression on the industrial court and what does it portend for business dealings in Edo State?
Thank you. You know, the problem has always been that over the years, we've never really had something on ground for the establishment of an industrial court. Over the years, you find that litigants and their counsel will travel all the way to Ondo, where we had, you know, the regional division of the courts. But thanks to Governor Obaseki, who provided the facility for that court to take off in Edo. And I can assure you that with that, those that have labor-related disputes will not have to travel very far. And again, it has also increased the number of federal presence in the states, the number of federal institutions you have in the states. Okay. So it has multiplier effect. Because when you bring justice closer to the people, it means that the rule of law will thrive in such an environment. And of course, when you go to that particular court, the facility there is top-notch.
All right. So now let's talk about the invasion of the Edo State House of Assembly. What are the legal implications of that invasion?
For me,
and could it have been prevented? For
me, it's not different from what happened in Mali. Any attempt to take over a part of government is a coup d'etat. There's no better way to put it. The closest example in Nigeria within a civilian sector or within a democratic setup was in 2003 when Ngige was about to be forced out of government house at Oka. Remember that so-called Okija shrine story between him and the Uba brothers, that's Chris Uba and his brother Andy, where Chris Uba insisted that the 3 billion naira that was paid must be refunded. And because the governor was not ready to pander to his demand, he sent thugs to take over government. And that is not different from what transpired on that day. On that fateful day, Edo people woke up to see that there was a failed invasion or an attempted invasion of the hallowed premises of the Edo State House of Assembly, which was under construction. Edo people had to rise up against that attack on democracy, against that attack on the most important or the first organ of government. Because if you look at our constitution, it's structured in a particular order. There's an order of precedence. Section 4 talks about the legislature, Section 5 talks about the executive, then Section 6 talks about the judiciary. So when you talk of the first estate of the realm, it is parliament. In Britain, parliament was so powerful that it could turn a man into a woman, as Sir Eskime said, a foremost constitutional scholar. So it was quite unfortunate of these 12 renegade members to conspire with 2 others whose seats were declared vacant and 3 others who were bought over. And unfortunately, where's the problem? The problem lies with this hydra-headed monster called Adaze. For over a year, Oshomole houses people in Abuja. The idea was to overheat the system. The idea was for there to be a state of emergency to create a constitutional crisis. But thank God that the Edo people rose in unison against that attempt to rape democracy. And what did they do when they failed to invade the house? They went to the residence of Pastor Osagi Ezeyamo, who is supposed to be a pastor, to organize a mock sitting of the Edo State House of Assembly. I'm so surprised because it is only Nollywood you will find that. They went to assume one retired deputy clerk from retirement who actually administered the oath of office on them, I mean, it is so sad
and what about
that happened without any arrest.
What about the maze?
I heard they went to the Aochi Polytechnic. It was the SUG maze they went to take from the Federal Polytechnic Aochi. And the students there have been crying that they should return their maze. And unfortunately, to have even used that maze amounts to what I would call, of course, that's forgery. Some people have argued that it's forgery. Because when you use something that is not real in place of what is real, it's forgery. And it's a criminal offense. The clerk of the house, of course, was not part of that process. That retired clerk who came to impersonate the clerk has also committed a criminal offense. That's impersonation. It's criminal impersonation. Is it possible for somebody who is retired to now take the place of the clerk within the meaning of Section 94 of the Constitution? Section 94 is very clear. That is the duty of the clerk. When you look at the provisions of Section 92 and 94, you discover that those provisions were violated. What does 92 say? The process of removing a speaker. For you to remove a speaker from office, because they purportedly removed Okiye in the so-called sitting they had in Izeyamu's house. For them to have done that, because at the time of that invasion, because 14 seats were declared vacant, the matter was in court, the matter is still in court, you had 10 members of the house. When you now ask yourself, what is the requirement to remove a speaker? Section 92 is very clear. You need 2/3 majority. And when you talk of 2/3 of 10, it's 7. They needed 7 members. Those 3 members who joined them, including the deputy speaker who was impeached, they could not have impeached Okay. So we're just looking at them. It's not different, as I said, from what happened in 2003 when Uba and his brother claimed they had removed Ngige from office and nothing happened. Nothing happened because it was a child's play. And it was under the pretense that an Assistant Inspector General of Police, one Ige, who is now late, gave them cover. Because what started this, there was a letter written by a lawyer, O.S. Daosa, to the Attorney General of the Federation, asking for security protection of these persons. And unfortunately, the AGF, without doing his own due diligence, directed the IGP to give them some form of security support. And that was what emboldened them to invade the house. But we thank God that that could not go through because Edo people resisted it. Because that was an affront against democracy, it was a coup d'etat, and it was an act of illegality, which Edo people resisted. And I'm happy that as we speak, these renegade lawmakers have gone into hiding because they were in court over their declared seats, their seats that were declared vacant. And by doing what they did was an act of criminal contempt. They can go to jail for this. You don't even need the police to investigate. It is contempt ex facie curia. Contempt that was done outside, the court premises.
So what you are saying is that they are still not members of the Edo State House of Assembly?
If their seats have been declared vacant, what is now their locus? What is now the basis for coming together to meet under the guise of members of the Edo State House of Assembly when their seats have been declared vacant? And they were the ones that went to court. We have a constitutional democracy. When a matter is in court, it is better to allow the judiciary to decide. And unfortunately, this matter is still in court because we're on vacation. If Atiku took over the reins of power in the manner Chris Uba and the brothers did against Ngige in 2003, would we have had democracy in Nigeria? When you have that kind of crisis, the military can take advantage of that. So what is wrong must be condemned in the strongest of terms. And it's quite unfortunate that the Attorney General who wrote that letter to the IGP has not said anything. It means he has accepted his guilt, unfortunately.
All right. Now, I don't know if you saw a video that went viral. That video captured the former national chairman of the All Progressives Congress while he was chatting with the chief of staff to President Muhammadu Buhari, and he spoke about some persons going to be arrested. I don't know. So, a lot of us didn't really get the audio very much. We didn't really hear what they were saying. Now, I know that you saw that video.
Yes.
Yes. So what do you make of that particular video?
Yeah, thank you so much. And it's quite unfortunate that we find ourselves in a situation where they use the so-called federal mind to intimidate members of the PDP. It is not far from what transpired at the Oba's Palace. There was an attack, nothing happened. And unfortunately, these people still carry on with some of these attacks against the campaign train of the governor. Remember what happened in Apana? There were sporadic gunshots. And I don't expect the police to play any role that is not, for me, in the interest of public peace. Because it is taxpayers' money that puts our police force going. I mean, it is the duty of the police to protect every citizen. So a situation where the police becomes partisan or are made to be partisan, like I give you an example. The letter written by the AGF to the police was written in bad faith. It is not the duty, it's the Attorney General of the Federation Commander-in-Chief. And again, the matter is in court. A matter that is sub judice, a matter that is in court, you don't take any step. You don't talk of police protection. How about the other people? Are you not supposed to give each side a level playing field? And unfortunately, this matter is in court. So the idea of allowing the police to escort some members to take over an arm of government, that is a coup d'etat. We talk of military coup d'etat, that would have been a police coup d'etat. So coming back to that question, Oshomale's behavior, I've always said it that Oshomale represents a clear and present danger to democracy in Nigeria. The question is Oshomale a member of the APC? The answer is no. This matter has been resolved by the court. That his suspension has been upheld is no longer a matter for debate. He even took steps in withdrawing the matter from court, meaning he has accepted that he's a suspended member of the APC. But you see him carrying on in their campaigns, creating crisis, making careless statements, and that statement that went viral is a clear indication of what is happening. They have been looking for some of our PDP leaders. Just today, the Federal High Court in Port Harcourt has restrained the police from arresting Osagbovo, who is one of the advisors to the governor, because they have been holding some PDP members with the police. But I'm happy that the Port Harcourt Division, that's the vacation court in Port Harcourt, has restrained both the police, the DSS, and I think the civil defense from either arresting or harassing him.
What you're saying is that that statement was directed at the PDP people?
Of course, because I don't think Oshomola will say they should arrest his people who have been fomenting trouble in Edo. Do you think he would tell the police to arrest his people? The answer is no. So if you are talking of federal minds, that was a display of federal minds. But I trust that the president will not allow that to happen under his watch. And I advise the new chief of staff not to go the way of infamy, because it will be wrong for him to do what the Attorney General of the Federation did in directing the Inspector General of Police to harass PDP members. This is a democracy. Sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria, from whom government derives all its powers and authority. So you cannot use the same police that taxpayers' monies are used to pay their salaries to harass the people.
Thank you. Adaze Emwanta is the senior special assistant to Edo State Governor on Public Affairs. When we come back, we'll be talking about the small claims court in Edo State. Stay with us.
If we not be God win you, we not go vote any of that person. We not go vote.
My good people of Afemesako, election time don't reach again. Make we shine our eyes and use our brain before we vote on September 19. Don't forget, say, before Governor Obaseki come, local government for Edo State die patapata. Workers no get salary for many months, but Agberus them. They collect local government money, put for pocket, they marry many wives, they buy car and they house. But God come hear our prayer and bring Obaseki come to come save Edo people, especially local government workers, from all this wickedness. That's now why we go vote for Governor Obaseki and Philip Shaibu again for this election to continue with their good mind and their good work for Edo State. So on election day, will be September 19, take your PVC and vote for progress and development. Vote for Governor Obaseki and Philip Shaibu. Vote PDP. Remember, say na umbrella will be the symbol of PDP. You go gum your finger put to PDP. Power to the people. Now the executive chairman, Esako West Local Government Council, Honorable Imonofi Inusa, bring una this message.
Oga, make you carry your ticket go.
I have not worked in Edo Best all my life. I actually came into the public service October 2017 when I saw an advert in the newspaper. I applied as a co-curricular officer, and I came in, I wrote the computer-based exam. I scored 75%. That earned me the job after the oral interview. And after the Edo Best training in April, I did an internal reapplication to become a learning and development officer because I love teaching. I have passion for teaching because I've taught for 17 years. And after applying for the learning and development officer's position, I joined other persons who applied to write the exam. I had a very high score of 83%. 75% was the cutoff mark. That automatically earned me the position of the learning and development officer's coordinator. So I had to coordinate every other person in the field. All the learning and development officers, 85 of them in the 18 local government area in Edo State. They go into the schools every day to ensure that the teachers are on task, because we found out that the 2 weeks training that each teacher got is not enough to internalize what they have learned. So what we have to do is to ensure that we go every day to observe the teacher and keep giving them feedback to help them improve on the training that they got, so that they can be better in their profession and enhance their skills. My name is Folashade Helen Franklin Osakwe. Presently, I'm the academic coordinator, Edo State Universal Basic Education Board, SUBEB.
All right, you're welcome back. Adaze Now, Edona has a small claims court. Can you explain the implication of this for business in the state?
Yeah, thank you. And I must thank the state chief judge, because much as the governor has always wanted a very good environment for businesses to thrive, but it required some form of synergy between the executive and the judiciary. And that was why I think that was the last week of February this year, on the 28th of February, the chief judge released a practice direction which established the Edo State Small Claims Court. And of course, the small claim court, yes, I mean, to break it down in simple man's language, is just like a special court headed by magistrates that handles certain commercial disputes. And by their very nature, the claims are not much. The threshold is 5 million, and I mean from 5 million down, not over 5 million. Okay. So that if you have any commercial dispute, particularly you want to recover a debt, so you don't need to go through the normal legal process of going before the high court or even the regular magistrate court. And the processes there are not very complicated. The rules are a bit relaxed. Each party comes to state his case, and you know, it's close to what you call an alternative form of dispute resolution, but it is still through the normal litigation channels. So this small claim court will allow businesses to thrive. So you will not have delays here and there. Some of these matters can be handled in less than 3 months, because the parties will be given the opportunity to state their case, and of course, the court will give its decision.
Okay. You know? Now, you are the Senior Special Assistant to Edo State Governor on Public Affairs.
Yes, I am.
Now, let's talk about the COVID-19 pandemic. What is your opinion about the way the government has handled COVID-19 in Edo State? Because while some states were shut down, Edo State was partially opened. Though it was condemned, but we need you to tell us.
Yeah, thank you. I want to say the approach by the federal government towards this COVID-19 pandemic was wrong, because we're trying to use the British or the American model. Remember that this pandemic has a life that cannot just be confined in a way that we don't do some comparatives. You know, it thrives better, I mean, the virus thrives better in colder climes, unlike here where, you know, you have heat and what have you. Because, funny enough, in between the time this pandemic started and when we started having lockdowns, I traveled abroad. When you compare the rate, I mean, the prevalent rate of the COVID-19 in the UK to that of Nigeria, you will discover that we had far more cases there than in Nigeria, because the virus cannot stand the heat of our sun, and because of our lifestyle, you know, Nigerians will always walk morning to evening out there, scorching, you know, sun. But I can tell you that clearly, some of those lockdowns we did affected our economy so badly. These other economies, their system is based on welfare, right? There were people who were not working, but they were getting paid. But how about that market woman who depends on going to the market to feed her family without any government package? And that is why this government had to put in place some palliatives. But how can you sustain a system on palliatives that is not inbuilt, that is not backed by law? So the need to now ease the economy by to free the economy, because there's a difference between lives and livelihoods. In saving lives, you must also consider livelihoods. People must survive, right? So that was why, much as we kept within the COVID-19 regulations on social distancing, on washing your hands, the use of sanitizers, face masks, there was also need to open up the economy, albeit in a restricted manner. Some of those lockdowns were necessary, but it got to a point where we now had to allow Edo people to go about their normal lives, because keeping people at home had its own implication. Not the birth rate part, don't smile at me. Because when you keep families at home, it has its own implication. That's just on the lighter note. But coming back to the question, yes, I'm happy that churches were allowed to open with certain restrictions, because whether we like it or not, we are a very religious country, right? Because that in itself is a sector of our national life. And I'm happy that Edo became a flagship. And it is not just in terms of the rules and regulations, but in terms of facilities, our response was also top-notch. We had 6, as we speak now, we have about 6 testing centers. Just recently, the NCDC, granted approval for the Edo Specialist Hospital to be used as one of the testing centers. And of course, you know that there was an isolation center that was built from scratch, the very first in Nigeria. So our COVID-19 response, in terms of the regulatory framework and in terms of the facility, not just the facilities, the persons that were trained. Remember, there were over 3,000 health workers that were trained by the state's government, by our state government. Not just the health workers, but some hard-work staff that manned the various screening centers and some of the support staff that worked in our various testing centers. And of course, we got various commendations from the NCDC, and even the Minister of Health came and he was quite impressed with what we had on ground. Or what we have on ground, because it's still an ongoing pandemic.
Okay. So we have a question from Enatome Andrew. He says, how is the government reacting to the allegations of the imported thugs by Oshomole and Yahaya Bello of Kogi?
There's little or nothing we can do. We have raised our alarm. We expect the federal government to take proactive steps. Just recently, some of these thugs, the local ones that we have, Tony Kabaka, no more less, the one they call Shaba and one other fellow, one Ide, Osarobo Ide, were all invited by the DSS. And as I was rightly informed, they were made to do an undertaking of good behavior. But I hope if these people now go back in their old ways of fomenting trouble, the DSS will do the needful, because they call themselves the lions and tigers. And I think Edo people know the lions and tigers. We are not going to go force by force, but we always keep within the COVID-19 regulations. We have a pandemic. Okay. You see the way and manner they go about their activities. I mean, these people, the time they had their meeting where Izeamu addressed them, that they should move from polling unit to polling unit, ward to ward, local government, that is even against COVID-19 regulations, unfortunately.
Mactop Jr., DSC, he says, my question is, what was the police AIG doing with Tony Kabaka inside the car during the incidents that happened in Oba Palace? And what was the APC and their members doing at the palace at the same time with governor at the palace? I think they need to investigate the APC Egyptians.
That's a question that
yes, that is
we've always asked.
Top Junior DS is asking that question.
We've always asked that question. If the meeting that took place at the Oba's Palace was a restricted meeting of members of a PDP campaign council that had about 5 PDP governors, including our own governor and his deputy, what was Tony Kabaka at the material time with his thugs doing at the Oba's Palace? They wanted trouble. They just wanted to create a scene. And it succeeded in destroying vehicles. Any vehicle that had a sticker of the governor was damaged. Of course, these videos went viral of the vehicles that were destroyed, some individuals who were injured. The idea is to create a sense of insecurity, to discourage people from coming out on election day. I'm happy that the DSS have invited them. It is not just to invite these people, but I think proactive steps must be taken, because they say they are the lions and tigers. And the question is, do we allow lions and tigers to move freely? Edo State is not a wildlife, neither is it a zoo. If they now say they are lions and tigers, there's a way you domesticate them. Like the zoos we go to, we don't see lions move around freely. They are kept in cages. So if they have proclaimed themselves as lions and tigers, I think it is for the security agencies to treat them as such. Wild animals are not allowed to move freely. Even your Alsatian dog, you don't just allow your Alsatian dog to move freely. Because we are not in a state of nature where life was nasty, brutish, and short. They have proclaimed themselves as lions and tigers. So what else do you need? Because we have laws in this country, and our laws are meant to control lions and tigers.
So what do you make of the word-to-word campaign embarked upon by the governor?
Excellent. The governor has been able to cover all the wards in Edo North, himself and our campaign team. They have covered all the wards in Edo Central, and Edo South begins this week. Because the governor knows he has a social contract with the people. So he's not going from ward to ward, asking for the support of Edo people, showing them the things he has done. And you remember that when he went through these wards, there were many commissioning that has taken place. All the farms he has gone, we've started harvesting. The roads that have been completed were commissioned even by the governor of Delta and other party leaders. And that is democracy at work. Compare that with the the APC candidates, who is doing local government by local government, and the people have been rejecting them. You saw what happened in the Onoge's palace in Igwebe. They were rejected, even in Uromi. They go anywhere and they get things like, Godwin, Obaseki, pepper them and the rest. Edo people are wiser now. They know the difference between light and darkness, between what is known and what is unknown, between truth and falsehood. And the good news is this: the governor has performed, and his performance is what is speaking for him. And that is why we have what we call our mega agenda, making Edo great again. The governor has transformed the sports sector, and that's why we are hosting the National Sports Festival in October. I mentioned our COVID-19 response. He's industrializing the states. Just recently, the senior special assistant to the president of Nigeria was sent to inspect our modular refinery at Olugbo, and according to them, the engineering work is 95% complete, and that the project will be commissioned in September. Of course, it will come after the elections, but that is one of the social contracts that the governor has achieved. They say he's an MOU governor. The MOU is a reality today. There's no agreement you will have with an individual that will not be reduced into writing. So it is not just a question of saying, I will do. He's now saying, these are the things that I've done. The power plant is there that will power all our public buildings, the industrial cluster. You saw the fact that the previous power project, Azura, have been giving electricity to the production center. So these new power plants will continue from what we have stopped with Azura. The street lights, of course, work throughout the night, and that can address this problem of insecurity. Because if everywhere in Benin is lit at night, can the armed robbers operate? They cannot operate. So it has a multiplier effect.
Okay. Now, as the senior special advisor to the governor on public affairs,
yes,
to the governor on public affairs,
yes,
what, in your opinion, are the three key sectors or three major projects that you think will guarantee the governor's re-election for a second term?
Permit me to talk about three projects and three social ills the governor has corrected, because they go hand in hand.
Okay.
It was because he refused to service those three ills, that was how he was able to achieve those three projects.
Okay,
the three legacy projects are namely, first, he has been able to revamp the educational sector. We have the Edo Best, we have the technical education that he has revamped. Benin Technical College is now a flagship, the best in Africa, the whole of West Africa. That's one sector he has transformed completely. Abruzali University is not what it used to be. That sector has been transformed. Even still on tertiary education, both the College of Agric and the College of Education has three campuses, cutting across the three senatorial districts. He has been able to hand over our former Edo College of Education, Ekeadolo, to the federal government. And that institution will kick off in October, which is a very big thumbs up. Remember, Uniben was once a state-owned institution. It's now a federal institution. So we have a governor that has been able to liberalize our educational sector, right? Yeah. That is one area. You talk of industrializing the state. You cannot industrialize the state if your power sector is not right. So this is the very first state that can boast of its own power, plants, that supplies not just public buildings, but the industrial layout with electricity, 24 non-stop electricity. And NEMS are the federal government agency responsible for regulating such, power project, has come to give us, a commencement certificate. They did a test run and they said we are good to go. That is that for that. And in terms of industrializing the state, remember that oil is the mainstay of our economy. Yeah. We now have a modular refinery, which is 95% complete. The federal government has come to certify that place. And I can assure you, with these three legacy projects, Edo people will have no other option but to re-elect the governor. I will not talk about roads, I will not talk about other sectors he has impacted, even sports. As I said earlier, we are hosting the sports festival because our sports facilities have been rated the best in Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Well, that brings us to the last break of the program. We will come back. We shall be going to our page to see what your comments are. Stay with us.
My name is Eseosa Igaro. I am a pupil of Adesuwa Primary School in Benin City. Anytime I'm going to school, I am full of excitement. I am excited because of the beauty of my school. Our classrooms are well furnished, and of course, our teachers teach us very well. Our teachers with new techniques and electronic devices have made learning very easy and fast. I cannot wait to be in school again tomorrow.
Listen to this. On the 5th of October 2019, thousands of teachers gathered at the Eagle Square, Abuja to honor Governor Godwin Obaseki as their best performing governor. This is because Governor Obaseki's far-reaching and redemptive measures have created the right environment with the introduction of Edo Basic Education Sector Transformation, Edo Best Program. Under the Edo Best Program, 11,300 teachers have been trained in ICT. 11,300 tabs have been distributed, 891 schools have been covered, 269,000 pupils are benefiting from Edo Best. Liberia, Rwanda, Sierra Leone have visited to adopt the model, while states in Nigeria, including Lagos, have also visited and are set to adopt the model. Pupils learn 3 times more of what they used to learn. Edo teachers are the third group of workers in the world to work with Facebook Workspace. 1,200,000 instructional materials have been distributed, and there is community ownership of schools. Governor Obaseki is changing the people's socio-economic destinies with robust basic education in Edo State.
All right, you're welcome back to our comment segment. Andrew, usually we go to our page to see what people are saying. Okay. Some we probably just make a comment, and while others pose questions. Okay. Now, I have a question here coming from Ray Johnson. Ray Johnson says, how is Governor Obaseki planning against the rigging machine of Oshomole and cohorts? That is a question coming from Ray Johnson. You want to answer that?
Yeah, beautiful question. I'm happy that the people of Edo, who are the ones that will decide who becomes their governor, or if the governor will be re-elected for a second term in office, are very conscious of recent happenings. And this is not far from the meeting the embattled APC candidate had with some thugs, prominent of whom is Tony Kabaka, who said that they are lions and tigers, right? And unfortunately, the embattled APC candidates told them that on election day, because they are very dangerous, they should not just do the activities. I don't know what he meant when he said that it is an operation he could name Operation Show Your Results. They should move from polo units to polo units, not just polo unit to polo unit. They should move from ward to ward. And they should not just end there, according to him. I'm now using his exact words. They should move from local government to local government. And that is how rigging is done. So he's battle ready to rig the election. The question is, this video has gone viral, and the security agencies have invited these persons. So it therefore means that these persons must be placed on 24 hours surveillance before the election, during the election, and after the election. The governor of the state does not control the police. Remember that the police is under the operational command of the commander-in-chief, who in this case is the president. The best he can do is to ask that the federal authority should be neutral. The duty of the police is not to be part of the process, but to provide security. The duty of INEC is to ensure that it acts impartially, that they don't allow people to hijack materials, that result sheets are not released to private individuals, because there was a recent footage we saw from the election that took place in Ondo where PDP boycotted, how we saw people tampering severally, and I don't think this should be allowed in the Edo election. And I asked INEC, because they said they will have a dedicated portal where election results, unit by unit, will be posted. We hope that they'll stick to this. And again, we're having an election during the pandemic. So rigging will now involve lack of social distancing, right? So I beg the security agencies to be unbiased. I expect them to be professional. The governor has advised Edo people to come out, because if we all come out on election day, they will not be able to rig this election. It is when you have a situation of voter apathy, when we don't come out, that in our absence, they cannot hijack materials. If Edo people are pleased with what this governor has done, I know they will come out. So we'll keep sensitizing them, we'll keep encouraging them. Over 1 million persons were registered to vote. And if at least 80% of that number come out, why can't we have 100% participation? It is what we want. We want continuity. We want these good things to continue. So if really we want these good things to continue, we must come all out to vote on election day. It is our civic duty. If we say it is a social contract, the governor has done his part by developing the state, and the state developing the state. For this development to continue, for it not to be arrested, I think all well-meaning Edo people should come out on election day. And I can assure you, a lot of Edo people abroad are coming back home to vote, those that have PVCs. Across the states, they're all coming back before the election to vote. So if those from outside are coming back home to vote, I encourage those of our people who are back home to come out on election day. There will be security.
Thank you very much. And this one is coming from John Abroko. It's just a statement or a comment. He says, fighting Obaseki is fighting development of Edo State.
Sure.
Those who fought godfatherism shouldn't be godfathers themselves. Obaseki all the way. All right, so Andrew, would like to say a big thank you to you for taking out time out of your very busy schedule to come on the program.
Thank you so much for having me, and thanks to our viewers.
And once again, Andrew is a senior special assistant to Edo State Governor on Public Affairs, and of course, he is a lecturer at the University of Calabar. He's been able to throw more light and, of course, the legal implications of some of the issues that are making the rounds. All right, and of course, he was able to talk about some of the major projects of Governor Obaseki, talking about the educational sector, industrializing Edo State, and of course, the forthcoming Edo 2020, scheduled for October 2020. So on behalf of everybody that has stayed tuned.
September 2020.
No, sorry. No, the sports festival is coming October.
Okay.
Yes, but of course the election is coming on the 19th of September 2020. That is just 26 days away. Yes. So on behalf of everybody that has stayed tuned, my name is Habiba Oyege Oyarekwa. Good evening.
Thank you.
No man is God, Obaseki or governor. Forward ever, backward never. Let's go further together. Godwin Obaseki. Obaseki is the right candidate for Edo. Oh yeah, 4+4 equals to continuity. Oh, yes. Dogba, Obaseki, continue your work, yo. You do Obe Stadium renovation, even we hit the door best. Plenty achievement for your time, oh. Our life will done better, eh. Obaseki, Ashaibu, now them be the winning team. God win Obaseki.